So last week, the week beginning March 7, the Integrity Commission released a report on the Firearm Licensing Authority. Since then, there have been resignations and calls for resignations and suspensions. Jeanette Calder is the Executive Director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal. She joins us now to weigh in on this ongoing situation. Good morning to you, Ms. Jeanette. How are you doing?
Morning, Jeanette.
Morning. It's a good Monday so far. Morning, Neville.
Excellent. So you've been looking on one resignation in recent days. Your thoughts on this? Is JMP happy to see this? Does it look like accountability is going to be a thing, or are you not hopeful?
Oh no, Simone, our default mode at JAMP is hopeful. So we start by saying that we do what we do because we're indefatigably hopeful about where we're heading. Let me just say to everybody that our view is that things are changing. It's the pace level that we're having a problem with, yeah? Now, what I want to say with regards to accountability is that I want us to be very careful. Having read this report, there are some questions that it's raising and some answers that we still don't have. And so I want to caution Jamaica that as hungry as we are for accountability, and as important as it is to performance, we have to be very careful with how we view this report and what it is saying and what it is not saying. So I think there are actually, Simone, two resignations. I believe that Mr. Dennis Meadows, who is the only person that has actually been named as an individual in the conclusions of the report, there are charges, I believe, for public misconduct. And I think the report indicated that he committed nepotism and there were matters of conflict of interest. And his case has actually been put to the Director of Corruption Prosecution at the Integrity Commission to determine whether or not he'll be prosecuted. So he has stepped down from the 3 boards that he currently sits on. And yes, Robert MONTAGUE did resign from the cabinet last week. So yes, we're on the path to accountability, but what we have here is an issue that's actually bigger than the individuals that we're talking about. And that is why JAM's press release spoke definitively to the way forward. Mm-hmm. We want to look at ministerial independence, removing the minister from making decisions that are really operational. I mean, most of us who pay attention know that ministers have always said, we're into policy. But a minister being empowered to reverse a recommendation of investigators and reverse a decision of a board is an operational matter that we don't think is a good idea.
It's a governance issue.
It's a serious governance issue. For one, there are other implications and other allegations regarding even parliamentarians, which would mean his colleagues, coming to ask for favors. And you really don't want to put them in that kind of position. And the recommendation that we're making, Simone, is that this decision, if it is going to be appealed, if an investigator sits, talk to the people who are applying, the board sits, listen to what the investigators say, and have decided that this is not somebody who should be weaponized, then anybody who should be appealing that really ought to be a judge in chambers. And I think that's consistent with how we operate now. And I think since we have, I should point out that the Parliament is currently reviewing the Firearms Act. So it's actually a little providential that this situation or this report has come forward, because these are some of the considerations that Minister Chang can actually raise while they're reviewing that act, and to strengthen that act in ways in which Jamaica won't see a report like this before us again.
And I accept what you're saying up front, but whoever is in charge of making these decisions or not making these decisions, whether it be the minister or not, could they not do the same thing that we're seeing, that we are suggesting happening to the ministers now? So shouldn't that be the part that is fixed and say, all right, if me in charge, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, as opposed to say, I shouldn't be in charge?
Well, Never, here's the thing, and I'm glad you asked that question, because I really wanted a window to talk about something that I think is really important. It's a matter of public confidence, and let's just talk straight. I think in terms of the judiciary versus the legislature, there have been several polls done in Jamaica that clearly indicate that the people of Jamaica repose far more trust in the judiciary than they do in the legislature, which is where our parliamentarians are. Right. So I would say to you, if we have a fairly good record for how the people of Jamaica feel about their employees, those that are in parliament and those that make decisions on behalf of them in the judiciary, then I would say to you that it's not equal. And I'm very comfortable on that basis, placing this responsibility where it already is with so many other matters. Now, let us bear in mind that there should always be, I believe, Neville, some room for an appeal if somebody makes a decision. And let me not leave this morning without saying two things, because I don't think civil society or the media have really done justice in telling the people of Jamaica that where this report is concerned, there is nothing in it that says you cannot give a former convict a weapon legally. So let us be very clear that that is allowed in law. Why? Well, let's say that man has actually committed a crime a couple of years ago and has been living a life demonstrably as a good and responsible citizen. We all make mistakes, and I think that there should be room for an appeal. An appeal should be with a judge in chambers, not before a minister, not before a parliamentarian.
Okay.
Gotcha. So you said this question, the report raises more questions than answers. So what are some of the questions that you want to be answered? Let's talk through some of them, or that have been raised.
Right. I think that the report, and sometimes I'm trying to understand, Simone, how differently could the Integrity Commission have approached it? Because right now there's been a discussion in the public space, and rightly so, about in particular our two ministers, and the question around, the extent to which they did not do us justice. Now, the report speaks to some appalling, in our eyes, decisions that they made. However, when you get to the conclusions of the report, and I'm really going to encourage every citizen, this is your business, and our favorite hashtag, Simone, is Mind Your Business Jamaica, right? Mind your business, get the report, and at a minimum, look at the conclusions. The Director of Investigations at the Commission has spent 5 long years. There was no rush. But having come to the conclusion, having looked at the cases that the ministers presided over, there is no conclusion that is pointing any allegation at either of the two parliamentarians. Dennis Meadows is the only person named, and the board for the irregularities in their decisions, as well as what they call improprieties. So that's it. So we know, we have looked at the decisions the minister has made, but the very Integrity Commission has not clearly said that there's anything unlawful or any abuse of power. So I am saying that I would have liked to have had a clearer statement made so the public would have had some clarity. The second thing is, we are now being asked to wait for further investigations from the FID, which is the Financial Investigations Division of the Ministry of Finance, as well as MOCA. But the reason that the report provides should be concerning to the Jamaicans, who will be spending about $1.15 billion on the commission this year, which is that, Jeanette, Simone, Neville, we're going to pass this off to the other two because there are some matters pertaining to corruption outside of our remit. Now, you and I have spent 3 years hearing about how we have muscled up this entity. They are so powerful now, they don't even have to send cases to the DPP. The Director of Corruption Prosecution can send anybody named in this report before them, prosecute them, find them, and send them to prison. So the question, Neville and Simone, is what are the issues that this entity, as powerful as they are legislatively, financially resourced, they would have to now ask the Jamaican people to wait. Again, there are people who are concerned about the 5 years that this report has taken. Remember, there's a statute of limitation of 6 years. Now we're going to wait further, Neville. On what grounds? I think there should be an explanation given to us regarding that. Yeah. So those are just some of the questions, Simone.
Yeah, we said earlier Mr. Montague has resigned. Mr. Bunting said yes. He doesn't see any reason to resign, backed up by his party. The leader came out and said him don't do anything wrong. Your thoughts on that?
I think that there has been some disservice done to Mr. Bunting. I don't think the matter has been handled as intelligently, Neville, as it should have. And what do I mean by that? As I said at the beginning, none of them did anything unlawful. But the people of Jamaica have to have some confidence that those who are making decisions on behalf of them are doing it judiciously. It's not always about the law. Now, Mr. Bunting, unlike the cases of Mr. Montague, there is no evidence to suggest that Parliamentarian Bunting gave any license to a convict. And I think that we should bear in mind that since the law gave Mr. Bunting and Mr. Montague the power to reverse it, should they determine that that was necessary, if Mr. Bunting, in his own mind, decided that a man who was not convicted of a charge that was made against him, and in one instance there was an allegation that didn't even turn into a charge, then he felt that, no, we should give him a license. And in one case, that person's entire conviction was expunged. And in law, that means obliterated in a way in which it never existed. And his reasoning is that, so if I'm not to consider it, why shouldn't I give him a license? Well, what we also haven't been told is that gentleman Neville had actually lied on his application. He actually did not tell them that he had a conviction which was being expunged. So when you lie on an application, one could say, Minister, I think that was good reason not to give it to him. Now, the point is, he made the decision. We don't like it. Neville, there's one message that JAMP has for Jamaica is this: they are your employees. So if you have an employee who didn't do anything unlawful, but you don't repose trust in his ability to make a good decision, then there is still something, I believe, for the party president to consider. When Mr. Bunting stands in the House level, people must lean in. People mustn't go. So my concern is the trust for politicians is threadbare. And so there is still something for Mr. Golding to consider if it is that the people of Jamaica, in spite of the fact that nothing unlawful was done, do not feel confident that when he stands in the legislature, he's not making the best decision for us. So it's not as clear-cut as that.
There's one final question I want to ask you. We're really good at kicking the can down the road. I do not envy you for your position because accountability is not I don't want to say it's not a thing in Jamaica, but private sector is trying their best to imbue it throughout their fabric. But in terms of government, and you talk about public confidence, we don't see it really as a thing in Jamaica. So how hopeful are you that you will be able to make a material contribution or to effect material change, whether now or in the near future? It's really hard.
Let me tell you, I use myself as a guinea pig, Simone, and it wasn't magic. I actually have the confidence based on the fact, and I'd be happy to come back and make that case. But Jamaica has a strong legislative framework. We have a strong policy framework. We have a strong, everything that needs to be in place. I have this argument that all the ingredients that we need are here. What is missing, is you and I. And why are we not in the ring? Because there's some information that the people of Jamaica need to creditably and effectively hold the government to account. And I came into that information. One of that is the accountability of framework of Jamaica. Who is responsible? What are they empowered to do? The other thing is understanding how the parliament works. And with those two things put together, the light came on. And so JAMP is of the view that if we simply start sharing with Jamaicans what we know, they will engage. People are not going to engage what they don't understand. There's a confidence issue. So it's very simple, Simone. If I come back one day and I go through those ingredients for change, there is going to be a shift in your posture. Right. So I rise to that challenge, Neville. But there's a lot going for Jamaica. I just want a chance to tell us all that is in place so that we can get in the ring. We are the employees. We are outside of the ring, Neville. So how the system will work? You tell me. Right. We got to get engaged.
Stay safe. God bless you.
Hopefully we'll be able to have you back to talk about that for true. Executive Director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal at the Council of JAMP, Jeanette Calder.
All right, folks, after the break, an update on mandatory face-to-face classes. Stay with us, please. Soon come.